Thank you for joining us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che with the latest. Just over a week before local elections on June 4th here in Korea, the main rival parties were out campaigning over the weekend in some of the most hotly contested constituencies. The ruling Saenuri Party stumped in Gyeonggi-do province, a key battlefield that is home to the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, while the opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, campaigned in Seoul and Incheon. A new education proposal became a controversial issue this weekend after Kim Jin-pyo, the opposition candidate for Gyeonggi governor, promised to turn daycare center workers into government employees to boost their job stability. The Saenuri Party blasted the proposal as populism, saying that it would cost the country 10 trillion won, or roughly $10 billion to do that. Now turning to the investigation into the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, authorities say the fugitive de facto owner of the ferry has been spotted in southern Korea. This is the first time Yoo Byung-un has been seen since the accident just over a month ago. Our Connie Lee has more.
One of the most wanted men in Korea has been spotted after being on the run for about a week. Prosecutors have confirmed that Yoo Byung-un, the de facto owner of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, was in Suncheon, southern Korea, just days ago. Investigators say Yoo is no longer in the city, but the sighting confirms that the 73-year-old was in fact in the country and may still be in Korea. Also on Sunday, authorities arrested 4 people for allegedly helping Yoo flee. Prosecutors say all 4 of them are members of the religious cult led by the ferry owner, and that one of the arrests was made after the person was seen on surveillance cameras at the religious cult's headquarters. To help with the search, the cash rewards for information on Yoo and his eldest son have gone up. Prosecutors are now offering up to $500,000 for anyone with information on the elder Yoo and almost $100,000 for tips on the son. And in related news from Korea's southwestern island of Gyeonggi-do, efforts to find the bodies of those still missing from the sunken Sewol-ho ferry have been halted for now and could remain stalled until Monday. Bad weather conditions, including fast tidal currents and foggy conditions, have prevented divers from searching for the last 16 bodies still underwater. No bodies have been recovered since Wednesday, and the death toll stands at 288. But officials say that once the weather conditions improve, they will attempt to use remotely operated vehicles or ROVs to facilitate the search. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Staying on the topic of Sewol-ho accident, the ones hit hardest financially by the tragedy are the many small and mid-sized businesses in and near the site of the sinking. More than 11,000 tours have been canceled since the disaster, denting the incomes of tour operators and related businesses. Government officials processing state aid requests say they have allocated 11.7 billion won, or around $11.41 million in new loans to areas close to the sinking since the aid program began in mid-May. But the latest government data shows delivery of the aid has been slow, primarily because many small businesses cannot meet strict qualification requirements. Area businesses now say they hope the government will establish a special rescue fund. Samsung chairman Lee Gun-hee has regained consciousness for the first time since his heart attack on May 10th. His medical team at Samsung Medical Center says his health has been improving by the day and expressed optimism that Lee would soon regain other cognitive functions. Doctors had been uncertain of when he might come to until this Sunday evening, and adds that he is becoming more responsive to outside stimuli. The 72-year-old underwent a procedure to widen his blood vessels and had a stent implanted to maintain blood flow to his heart. The number of household loans by Korean banks compared to other kinds of bank loans has dropped to a 13-year low. The Bank of Korea says that by the end of 2013, household loans represented 41.7% of the roughly $472 billion in total bank loans. That's the lowest percentage since the year 2000. Last year, it was a different story. A growing number of people borrowed heavily to finance high mortgages. The central bank says due to the strict criteria banks place on borrowers, more households turn to non-monetary institutions with simpler and faster application process, even though interest rates there are higher than banks. Moving on to other parts of our world, over in Ukraine, 3 months after the country's ousted President Viktor Yanukovych fled the country, voters are now heading to the polls to choose their next president. Hopes are high for a new leader who promises closer ties with the West. Here's Arirang with more.
Ukrainians are heading to the polls on this Sunday to elect a new leader who can put an end to the months of unrest that began when protests forced a pro-Russian regime out of power back in February. Tensions remain high in the east, with pro-Russian separatists threatening to block voting. The area is home to 1/7 of the country's 36 million voters.
Even if there is some interference at certain polling stations, or even if one electorate with several hundred polling stations cannot operate properly, that won't stop the Central Election Commission from determining the final result and announcing the newly elected president.
Businessman Petro Poroshenko, who was a strong backer of protests against former President Viktor Yanukovych last winter, is emerging as the front-runner, far ahead of the 20 other candidates. Ukrainians are hopeful the new president will restore order to the embattled country.
The new president should at least be able to end the current domestic conflicts. If the new president can stop Ukraine's domestic conflicts, it will be the greatest achievement within the presidency. I hope everything goes fine after the presidential election. I hope people can live peacefully and be more confident in the future.
Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed to respect the election results and said he is ready to work with the new leader during a speech in an economic forum on Saturday. Observers say Putin's conciliatory gesture was made to contain the damage to the Russian economy from Western sanctions. Yurian, Arirang News.
Japan and China accuse each other's air forces of dangerous behavior near a disputed island chain in the East China Sea this Sunday. Japan says Chinese Su-27 fighters came as close to as 50 meters to a Japanese OP-3C surveillance plane and accuses China of going over the top in its approach to the territorial dispute. China's defense ministry argues that Japan's planes entered China's air defense zone and carried out dangerous actions during China's joint maritime exercises with Russia. Regional tensions have been running high over Beijing's territorial claims, and defense analysts around the world fear the tensions could eventually escalate beyond verbal warnings. Thailand's ruling military junta has warned people to not join protests against a recent coup amid rallies that are turning increasingly violent. The junta issued the warning through various broadcast channels on Sunday, adding that normal democratic principles cannot be applied at this time. Despite the warnings, over 1,000 anti-coup protesters marched across the capital of Bangkok over the weekend to oppose the army's takeover, while troops in Thailand continued to round up leaders of the pro-government Red Shirts who are supporters of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. Former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra, as well as about 100 political figures, are still in detention by the military. And in the U.S. state of California, authorities have now identified the gunman who killed 6 people and injured 13 before turning the gun on himself. 22-year-old Elliot Roger went on a killing spree Friday night in Isla Vista near the campus of the University of California, Santa Barbara. Authorities say he fatally stabbed 3 of his roommates before going on a shooting rampage, killing 3 people. Roger fatally shot himself inside his car after an exchange of gunfire with police. Roger, who the police described as severely mentally disturbed, released a YouTube video a day earlier explaining his loneliness and intentions to kill in order to take revenge on people he said rejected him. Let's shift gears to a different story now. Getting a flat tire can be a real drag, and in worst-case scenarios can lead to injuries or even death. But if local researchers have their way, flat tires may soon become a thing of the past. Our Sun Jang-in has more.
A group of researchers placed several ping-pong balls onto a platform carrier to measure the vibration caused by wheels. They installed average tires onto one platform and so-called smart tires onto the other one. When running on the road, the balls on average tires bounce continuously due to the vibration. However, the ping-pong balls on smart tires stay relatively still and the tires run without making much noise. Researchers say the secret lies in a structure inside the wheels that disperse the weight of air added to the tires. Using a cushion effect, they have solved the problem of both vibration and noise.
The air pressure applied on the tires is dispersed inside, causing a cushion effect.
The smart tires do not require it to be made of rubber, which means less of a chance of getting a flat tire. Among new tires introduced by multinational companies, these locally developed smart tires are well received.
I believe the technology to disperse the pressure is superior than the so-called hive structure developed in other countries.
Experts believe the smart tire, which is currently being introduced on carts and beds, is sure to lead the global tire industry once it is further developed. Son Jang-in, Arirang News.
Now the weather. The skies are expected to clear up in Seoul and surrounding areas from Monday morning onwards. Unfortunately, Seoulites will have to remember to pack their masks as yellow dust is expected to hit the capital. Over in Gyeonggi-do, unfortunately, the conditions aren't expected to be favorable for rescue operations yet until further notice. And now let's take a look at the weather conditions elsewhere around the globe. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for staying with us. Have a great start to your week.